this document type would be used as you're doing your research and your analysis of a policy that you were trying to author or working with the team to author, and you were taking a lot of information and trying to determine exactly what type of document that you are required to write. The assignment actually had you analyze in Module 2 the the workplace harassment policy to see how it aligned with the document analysis checklist. And that is a reverse engineering technique just to get oriented to this kind of tool. It has value in complex policy document authoring or other authoring processes that you may need to get through. So just going through the different components, really it's identifying what is the subject of the document that you're going to be authoring. Is it technical content? Does it relate to an engineering type audience? Does it relate to more of HR policies and practices and not so much technical, but maybe organizationally driven? Does it require use of specialized knowledge? That means that in order to be able to distill and understand the document, you need to have specific areas of key knowledge. So either low, no, it's more general; medium, yeah, it's actually targeted at engineering; or H, yes, it's highly specialized. This is a policy just for NASA engineers. So really that's what specialized knowledge means. Specialized equipment, will there be procedures or peripheral documents associated with this document that require an understanding or some more detailed information on the specialized equipment, and is that high, medium, or low in its usage? How complex is the document? And in this particular analysis, they determine that anything that has less than 25 procedural-like steps is low, and anything that is greater than 100 is high. Process maturity, really that means within the organization, are the processes around which this policy is embedding itself? Is it a new policy, new processes? So it's a new adoption practices required. Medium, meaning it's been within the organization maybe more or less a medium term, whatever that means. Or, it's high maturity. This is a process and a program and a policy that's going to be adopted into the organization and has been for a long time. So the reasons for preparing the document, it could be one or all of these, or there might be other reasons, but you're trying to overcome a recent problem. Maybe there's some situation that has changed and caused some stress in the organization, and there needs to be a response. And a policy and maybe supporting procedures are one way to manage that problem. Prepare for a new situation. Potentially, for example, there's been some changes to pending changes to the distracted driving legislation, and you need to prepare for that by updating your policies and procedures, and change what the compliance might look like. Are there health or safety concerns that are reasons for having this document or policy in place? And are there any legal or regulatory requirements that are driving the creation of this document? So just identifying what those reasons are, and they could be, as I said, all of them, or just one or two, or maybe just one. When you're doing your analysis, and typically you might be working by yourself, but if you're with a team environment, because it's a complex document and you have to align with different departments, you would sit down and realize and try to figure out what the actual outcomes are going to be from creating this policy and implementing it in the organization. So will you be reducing defects or problems by a certain percentage? Do you anticipate, especially if it's a safety procedure, that you're going to reduce injury by a certain percentage? And do you think you might be realizing cost savings, or increasing production, or increasing customer satisfaction? Are there other quality practices or procedures that are required through ISO or some other standards that need to be incorporated in there as a goal? And you may have a goal that you need to streamline organizational practices and reduce staff by a certain percentage. So goals and results are an important component when you're doing your analysis and your research and you're framing out your policy, because you need to know how you're going to measure it and what that success might look like. The audience section, really the performer versus the reader. The performer are the groups that are actually responsible for the implementation or performance of the policy. And the reader is the audience, the target audience, the one that the individual or departments that have to read the policy and actually adopt the practices or regulations or rules that are within there. So typically, performer could be an HR department and reader could be all employees. It's just a simplified example. Education, typically if it's a specialized audience, you might identify that there's a requirement for a specific level of education. Most of the policies you'll be authoring and throughout your career, it's been my experience, are more generalized to an entire organization, or I do a lot of trades training type work in my workplace, and we have a lot of policies and work procedures that actually are specific to different kinds of safety training. So that would be based on if you're an apprentice lineman or you're a Red Seal lineman, etc., things like that. Age, that's just maybe appropriate to a whole organization. Gender, is this targeted to specific parts of your company based on gender? What is the motivation for the audience? Are they going to be adopting this easily? Are they going to have challenges with this? Is this a huge change for them, and how are you going to manage that? Attitude, is there some attitude issues related to motivation that you might need to identify? And this is actually very important information when it comes to implementing a policy and reviewing a change management plan. And that's something that we talk about in the last module of this course. Domain knowledge means, does the actually implementer or the adoptee of the practices or the policies, do they need to have any specialized knowledge in order to be successful in the adoption? Or do they need to have any specific kinds of experience? And again, in my world, if it's a safety-based policy and you're targeting it specifically to working at heights or some type of safety performance policy, then the domain experience would be related to the work that they're doing. And is the policy internal or external, meaning does it impact both your contractor community, for example, or your employees only? It helps you identify the scope of the work that you're trying to author. Urgency and importance. So are procedures urgent? That means that they're going to be immediately implemented. They might be soon, within a certain time frame, or sometime in the near future. Or are they, and what is their importance based on that urgency? They're critical to the organization and success, so there might be a high safety issue. That they're valuable and they're going to provide some great value back to the organization. That they're a good idea or not, and if so, why not? And so these are things that as a team or as an individual you would be evaluating during the planning and analysis and research phase of your policy. And then what is the impact of implementing this policy on the organization? What's that change management piece going to look like, and what is the value then to having this come forward? So that is really some of the key content related to this particular document.